a Playlist original.
Hey everyone, Jeff here from Films at Home. Thanks for coming back out to the Films at Home podcast today. Whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening along on your favorite podcast app, I appreciate all the support. Today's episode is a really, really good one because we're talking to another one of my friends from the world of Vinegar Syndrome, and that is Justin LaLiberty. He is the Director of Operations for OCN Distribution, which is a sister company of Vinegar Syndrome, which handles all of their partner labels. And Justin also does some work for Vinegar Syndrome proper on the side, doing some art direction, doing special features production. So he's involved in all of it, but mostly involved in that partner label program, which is what we're going to dive into here. They have like 24 different labels at this point, I believe, and they include labels like AGFA, the American Genre Film Archive, which I love, XYZ Films, Culture Shock Releasing. They just added Umbrella Entertainment, Deaf Crocodile. So many. Terror Vision was a part of that, who we interviewed last week. Gunpowder and Sky, Yellow Veil. Like, there's a ton of different partner labels that Justin works with and manages the distribution for. So we'll talk about how that whole program works with Vinegar Syndrome. I'll talk about some of his favorite pickups recently, talk about the Vinegar Syndrome business and how they're remaining profitable when so many different major studios are telling us how hard that can be. So we'll talk a little bit about the business side and also just discuss the work he does at Vinegar Syndrome with art direction and working on packaging of different releases and some special features, which is always fun to chat with. And Justin's great. You guys will really like him. I found out he actually grew up literally like 5-10 minutes away from where I just moved in New Hampshire. He lived in the town over from where I moved. So we had a connection there, which is really cool. And he's a really laid back, super knowledgeable guy who's done a lot in the world of cinema and movies, and he knows his stuff. So you guys will really like him. So sit back, relax, enjoy the interview, and I'll catch you guys at the end. All right, everyone, here's our interview with Justin from Vinegar Syndrome and OCN Distribution. Thank you for joining us today, Justin. Really appreciate this and appreciate you guys taking the time. It's I'm fanboying out because I'm a huge Vinegar Syndrome fan. So having Oscar, having some of the team members has been super cool. So, could you just introduce yourself here to the audience, talk a little bit about your career, what you do with in your current role, and just give us that background?
Yeah, my name's Justin LaLiberty. I am the Director of Operations for OCN Distribution, so Vinegar Syndrome's sister company. I also do some work at Vinegar Syndrome proper as well, producing supplements, working on, art direction, putting together the booklets that come with releases. I had originally come into the company a few years ago to be the archivist, and Oscar has since kind of taken over that role. Which, has been great and has allowed me to focus on other things. So that's really, the gist of it is kind of, I came in a different role and then I sort of morphed into doing a bunch of other things that I enjoy a lot. And my primary role is really kind of shepherding OCN Distribution.
Yeah. So for the audience, can you talk a little bit about like that, the difference there between what is OCN Distribution and like that partner label program and what is, Vinegar Syndrome proper, like you mentioned? Because I think there's maybe when you go to vinegarsyndrome.com, right, you get all of it, right? It's all together. So just talk about a little bit the nuance there between the two.
Yeah, so Vinegar Syndrome, it's our 10th anniversary. We've been kind of touting that. Vinegar Syndrome's been around for a decade. So Vinegar Syndrome is its own, kind of self-contained home video label. It's also a film archive, so we're preserving films, we're releasing films, restoring films, it's all kind of under one system. And then the sister company, OCN Distribution, is a distribution company. So OCN Distribution doesn't, release films in the way that Vinegar Syndrome does. Instead, we handle distribution for a bunch of other companies. So one of the common, I guess, kind of misconceptions is that, the OCN, the partner labels are Vinegar Syndrome, but they aren't. They are all actually their own entities. They are, curated by different people. They are, for all intents and purposes, their own home video companies run by people from outside of Vinegar Syndrome. And yeah, that's really the gist of it. It's OCN is a kind of this system that we developed as a home for labels that, you know, we really wanted to champion, that we wanted to get their films out there. And I think they're all labels that are giving a home to films that otherwise could be, you know, kind of left by the wayside, and not really getting picked up by other companies. And as you can see on a monthly basis, the output is only growing. So I think there are a lot of films that are being discovered by people, you know, either by people that have been here since the start or have come in very recently for, you know, kind of bigger Vinegar Syndrome titles, or there's people that are coming over solely because they're seeing, you know, one of these labels that they really like has either transitioned over to OCN from wherever they were before, or has started at OCN and they're really interested in what they're doing. So it's really just this way to kind of build up this like harmonious ecosystem of just films. You know, we all just love movies, and, you know, with Vinegar Syndrome, there's a very sort of specific kind of avenue and parameters set for the films that Vinegar Syndrome releases. And so with OCN, it was really nice to kind of be able to bring out films that we care about from a wide array of genres and countries of origins and years of production and things that might not necessarily gel with what Vinegar Syndrome does on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think that kind of explains the dichotomy.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really cool program and a really cool sort of concept to have like the distribution, but then also bring it all sort of under this, you know, the one website, which makes it easy for people to find things, which I think is important because, you know, you basically, you're using those Vinegar Syndrome resources to help the labels that you're partnering with to build up, which is great because I know how difficult that can be from talking to others who are starting small labels. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing. And to get the exposure, it's really cool what you guys are doing. And I mean, how many are you up to now? Because I think I want to say I go way back with Vinegar Syndrome, probably to the very beginning. And I don't remember when. America's Genre Film Archive is the one that I always kind of go after. I know that was one of the earlier partner labels, right? I remember buying from them.
That was the first one.
They were the first. Okay.
We have 24 partner labels right now.
Wow.
And
Crazy.
There's more coming. You know, there won't be a new label launching in April, but we will be launching a new we will be launching a new label in May. And we just recently had XYZ launch with us. So yeah, there's only more coming, which is, you know, a great problem to have.
Yeah, I thought they were the first because I remember I was so obsessed with the just wacky stuff that was coming out of AGFA that is what got me hooked on all the other partner labels. And I was like, okay, there's levels to this. Like I thought Vinegar Syndrome was out there. You know, wow, there's some really interesting stuff. So America's Genre Films been one of my favorites, but I've started checking out some of the newer ones as well. And I saw you just sort of partnered with Umbrella Entertainment, which is, I think, really cool because they have some super interesting releases, but haven't always been like the easiest to get over here, being that they're in Australia. So is that sort of the goal with that partnership, was like to bring some more of what they're doing over to the States, make it a little easier to get them in the hands of people out here?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been like a disc collector for, you know, since the late 90s when DVD first came out, and importing has been something I've done for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah.
It's you know, it's fun. You know, going region free is like the best thing you can really do as a collector, but at the same time, it's not the most easiest to champion for access. You know, if you're trying to bring new people in to see these films and you want to have your films, if you are a distributor, you want your films as available as widely as they can be. So, you know, one of the things that we've been really trying to do is kind of hone in on different, you know, geographical regions. So, you know, Connie's got all these Asian films, and Canadian International's up in Canada, and now, you know, with Umbrella, we can kind of really hone in on more Australian films. So it is really just a nice way to kind of take, you know, an already existing brand. Collectors know who Umbrella is, you know, and all around the world. It's not like people, you know, in Australia, like people know them in the United States, they know them in Europe, they know them, you know, pretty much any country where people are buying discs, they know who Umbrella is, and they're pretty synonymous with Australia with, Ausploitation, Australian comedies and dramas, just kind of everything that's happening in Australia and Australian cinema, and it has happened. They're always kind of bringing out and restoring films that I've never even heard of and that we haven't really had available to us in the United States. So yeah, that's really the goal, not just with Umbrella, but kind of across the board, is to be able to bring out films that otherwise haven't, had home video releases here. Sometimes they're brand new movies, sometimes they're, movies from decades ago, but they're always, we're always trying to kind of highlight, just like with Vinegar Syndrome, these films that have kind of been forgotten.
Yeah, no, and it's super, super important because that is the fear. And we talked with Oscar a little bit on his episode of just like the idea that people think like lost films are from the 1920s and silent era, and it's like, yeah, there's stuff that's being released today that's disappearing on a streaming service somewhere and never being. There's stuff from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I mean, every decade has these films that need to be preserved and properly released, and I think that's a really cool part of the partner program, is that expansion to you guys are using some of your resources to help international and smaller labels make sure that these films aren't lost to time. And I appreciate that vision. I always feel good when I buy something because I'm like, okay, if this is going to people who are doing what I believe in, I'm supporting a great business as a collector, which is a really, really nice part of what you're all doing.
Right. Yeah, we all appreciate it.
So I did want to talk. So you were the former archivist before Oscar. So, what did you start right in 2012? Like, did you start with them or more recently?
No, more recently. I started a few years ago. I think it was 2019 that I came in.
Okay.
And I had come in, prior to that, I had worked for Alamo Drafthouse for a long time.
Okay.
As a film programmer. And I came in from Alamo, leaving my programming position. I had gone to school for film preservation. I went to grad school for film preservation back in 2011. So I had done that like even before Vinegar Syndrome existed.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone to school for film preservation. And after programming for a long time, I really just wanted to kind of get my hands dirty with film again, like holding film. I had been a projectionist for a long time too. So I really just wanted to get back into an archive, holding film, working on film, saving film, just really kind of having that tactile experience. And I had known Vinegar Syndrome. I had been getting the releases for years. I had become friendly with some of the people that worked for the company just through film programming, and I was writing on the side. So I had been doing all kinds of different things, and I had come to know them. I was in New York, they were in Connecticut. So it was very easy to kind of, stop by, and I had come to the building before, and then just one thing led to another. I came on as an archivist and just helped really kind of bring like an element of organization to what the archive had been up until that point. So really just kind of establishing new procedures and new means of storage and building an actual, functioning like digital database where we can see what we have and where they're located and, what condition certain things are in, kind of establishing that sort of archival structure that when you think of what an archive is, you think of it being, elements being findable, whether that's, a public library or library, the vaults at Library of Congress, like whatever you kind of envision an archive being, there's almost always going to be, an element of discovery to it. Like that's the kind of thing. Like you go into a library and you're going to ask a librarian where something is, and they're going to know where it is. Or at least know where it's supposed to be, because there has been a system, developed for that space and for the materials that live in that space. So when I came into Vinegar Syndrome, that was really my task, was how do we take, this expansive room with this, absolutely like priceless collection that there's no other mirror of in the world. It's full of, completely unique objects, some prints, but for the most part, it's a room of unique objects, and you need to be able to find all of those objects. So how do you do that? And that was my job. It was to come in and figure that out.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go with that question. So I was going to ask sort of like, what did it look like, before? Because I mean, in how many films were even in the arc? Because I think Oscar just meant he said you just did a big program of like 20,000 um, different films put into the archive over the last few years. So like, was it a much smaller thing that they were still trying to work on, and you had to organize? Did they have a lot of stuff just sitting around that need to be put in the right place? Like, sort of how did that all look when you walked in?
I mean, it's hard to really like quantify because the going into a room like that as an archivist, and as someone who had been around film or had been in various different archives throughout the years, you go in and like what you're looking for or what you immediately like your first impression isn't like, oh shit, there's so much film in here. You're just like you become like eagle-eyed, so you just walk through and you just like see titles,
Yeah.
or you like you see like certain sizes of things, like you just kind of you become very object focused. And that's how I've always entered archives now, whether I'm in MoMA or Library of Congress, or wherever you are. It's you kind of get this like radar, and you're just like, rather than looking at everything as a whole, you start looking at like specific shelves and specific film cans. And it's really hard to kind of take it in as like one large expansive thing, because you're so focused on kind of the granular pieces. And that's how I've always approached archiving in general. Is there is a big picture, and there will always be a big picture, but that big picture is so overwhelming that
Yeah.
it's like it's so much easier and also just more enjoyable to kind of go at things incrementally. So my first experience with the Vinegar Syndrome archive wasn't like, oh my god, like what am I going to do? It was more like, holy shit, look at what's here on that shelf. I can't
Yeah.
wait to open that up and look at it. Or even if it wasn't things I recognized, it was what's always been more interesting to me as an archivist is what I don't recognize. It's going, oh, there's a box that has no writing on it. What could possibly be in there? It's things like that, or you find like an unmarked reel, or you get to cobble together things. You'll find on one shelf there's 3 reels of this camera negative. Well, where are the other 2 or 3 reels? And then you're just waiting, and like months later it's like, oh, I found the other 2 or 3 reels. Now we have a complete camera negative for this movie. So that's always been kind of the pleasure to me, as an archivist, is like completing elements, discovering things that I didn't know what they were. Talk about lost films. One of the ways that we find lost films now is by archivists just going, what is this thing that's in my possession that I've never heard of? And you wind through it, you scan it, you watch it, you start doing research, and you're like, oh wait, this movie never came out, or it came out and nobody's seen it in 50 years because we thought it was lost. So that's, to me, that's always been that kind of highlight of being an archivist, is seeing things you didn't know existed, while at the same time also being as close to the original source of the films you love. And I think both of those kind of go hand in hand. And that was, for me, that was going into the Vinegar Syndrome archive, was going, on the one hand, there's all these films that I love that I get to handle their negatives. And then on the other hand, there's all of these things that I have absolutely no idea what they are, and I can't wait to find out what that is. So I wasn't going like, how many tens of thousands of reels are in here? Because if I thought that way, I'd be totally overwhelmed and would never be able to like, do my job, because I'd just be like, I'm never going to get this done. There's just so many reels of film, but instead it's going, wow, this thing I'm working on right now is amazing. And I'm going to take as good of care as I can of this thing. I'm going to make it, I'm going to prepare it. I'm going to make it, as conserved as possible. I'm going to make it scannable. We're going to maybe scan it and look at it. We're going to work on this thing. And then, 2 hours later, I might be working on something else. The next day I might be working on something else, but always just kind of going through it. Like, once the structure was established and like shelves were numbered and we knew, what that system was for where things go and how we find them, that's where I went. It was just like, object by object.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And it's like the You made me think while you're saying it, like just walking through and just looking at titles. It's like the ultimate video rental store experience where there's just like everything that all these different things, some you haven't heard of, some you have. I mean, just must have been incredible to walk through. I mean, did you discover anything that was unmarked that ended up coming out, or that you put together that you were really, proud of finding in there, or any favorites that stand out?
I mean, I didn't find it. It had been found before I
Yeah,
got there,
fair.
like shortly before I got there. But when I first went in, I noticed there were all these cans, like stacked cans. And if you've ever seen like an uncut film, like because with in a camera negative, typically you're looking at something that's 5 or 6 reels, 7 reels, depending on the runtime of the film, and that's what you're looking at. That's what we scan for a Blu-ray is anywhere between, like, we'll say 5 and 7 reels is your typical camera negative for a feature film that's somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours or so. But when you have an uncut negative, which means it's camera rolls, it could be dozens and dozens of cans. And so I started noticing there were all these cans of a movie titled New York Ninja. And then, of course, now everybody knows what New York Ninja is, but I didn't discover that. That had been discovered before I got there, and I just had never heard of it. I mean, nobody had really ever heard of it. And then, it became a project that we worked on and got released. But I think that's probably the most exciting discovery, I think, that has come out of the archive in my time.
Awesome. So with the partner labels, how do they handle their elements? Are they sending things into the Vinegar Syndrome archive? They're maintaining it on their own?
No, they do everything on their own. So that's kind of the thing with the partner labels that we want to try and kind of get across as much as possible too, is that they are doing this work. We want to give credit where credit is due. Like they're getting the work done. Every once in a while we'll help out with certain things, whether it's creating extras or helping commission artwork or something like that. But the vast majority of the time, these companies are they're going and getting they're finding elements, they're getting them scanned, they're getting restorations done, they're producing their supplements, they're commissioning their own art. They're doing it all, and then I handle the logistics. I handle scheduling and manufacturing and sales, wholesale, things like that. So I'm taking in their work, and then my job is to get it out there and sell it, and things like that.
So that's sort of, I'm glad you went towards the sales thing, because it sort of begs this question. Everybody asks me this question, and I'm sort of curious too. But in a world where you have, a Disney or a Paramount, Warner Brothers, who you'd think, I just imagine in this world, unlimited resources, right? Like they are top. They're telling people, hey, this physical media thing, this isn't profitable. We can't do this. We can't put these releases out there. How is it that you guys are able to take something that is so obscure and have it make business sense? Or maybe sometimes it doesn't, and you do it for the preservation. I mean, that's what everybody always asks me is, man, how does Vinegar Syndrome, or how do their partner labels, America's Genre Film, how do they get this stuff out on disc with all the costs and have it make and it's profitable, and they continue to do it? Because we hear all the time that physical media just isn't profitable. It's not what it is. And there's, movies that are sitting in major studio vaults that were like, come on, we want this. People would buy this. Why are you saying it's not going to be profitable? I'm just so curious, like how you guys approach it differently, that makes it work.
I mean, our standards are different. It's our standards. I say that, but to clarify, our standards are very high. Standards are very high in the in our product, but our standards are also different in terms of what profitable means and what you're trying to attain. You look at someone like Disney, and they're going, hey, we're going to open up this Marvel movie, and we're going to make a fucking $100 million in one weekend. Why would we care about making 5,000 Blu-rays of this movie from like 1993 that nobody cares about now? Nobody,
right.
We're just going to go, why are we chasing this when we're in production. We have multiple $100-something million movies in production. We're doing 4,000 or 5,000 theater screen releases. They're like, what does that mean to them? It's just kind of antithetical to operating a studio like that in this day and age. They're going, we have Disney Plus. We have these massive, massive movies that in 1 week are going to make more than physical media would make for us probably in a year.
Right.
It's just not their business model anymore. And it makes sense. We're talking about these companies that have, multiple revenue streams, whether that's merchandise, amusement parks, TV, streaming, they have their fingers in like everything. So when they start looking at, the bigger picture for them and they go, what do we not need to be doing? What do we not need to spend money on, hire staff for? What is something we can cut out? That it's kind of clear where they're going, what they're deciding gets the X. Of course, they're still doing, Warner Brothers is always going to do, or at least always, maybe not always, but for the foreseeable future, do home video for, DC movies. Disney's going to do them for Star Wars and, Pixar movies, like things like that it's kind of evergreen. Like we're not at a point where we're not going to get, the next Avengers movie on a 4K UHD, but it's the back catalogs that are being neglected. And we're starting to see, more license deals happening. We're seeing different labels establish different agreements with different major studios, studios that have not always, been eager to work with outside companies. So I think, there are like some changes happening, which is good. But at the same time, I think it's all about what you're looking for. If you're looking into home video as like a get-rich scheme, it's probably not, what you should change your occupation to be. But if you care about, this stuff coming out and doing it well and building an audience, it's something that can be done. And there's clearly a very passionate fan base out there, and there are equally passionate people behind the scenes doing it. And, this whole ecosystem of all these different labels, like, people know each other. It's not as big as it seems. I think it seems big just because there's so many labels now.
Yeah.
But a lot of labels. I mean, your staff can be a staff of one. It can be a staff of 2 or 3 or 4. It's a lot of these staffs are really small, and then some have crossover. There's different people who might be working for different companies, especially when you start getting into like special features or something. Like, you buy discs from different labels, you start seeing the same names on things. So it's a very, it's a very like insular industry where there's a lot of the same people kind of working on the same things, chasing, maybe chasing the same films, chasing the same demographic, but luckily there's enough to go around. I work for a company, but I also support every other company. I buy discs from everybody. And I think that goes for pretty much everybody in this industry. I can't think of anyone, I know that works in home video that isn't buying discs from every single company.
Yeah. Everyone I've talked to is definitely like, hey, I loved this release. So like, just because I work for these guys doesn't mean I'm not supporting the industry as a whole, because we are all everybody's sort of in it together. And, I think this is what I've been seeing, and I'm curious if you're seeing the same thing, but I do see it sort of consolidating down, even from the major players, where like you said, like Disney does not care about the back catalog that's going to sell 10,000 discs. But for a smaller label that specializes in physical media, it can do a really good job with it. Selling 10,000 discs would be a really big deal if they can get the license. So do you see, you sort of mentioned it, but you see that sort of where things are moving is that the bigger players are going to say, let's give this stuff to the people who specialize in this, because we don't have those departments anymore.
Maybe, it kind of remains to be seen. It's all very, it's like home video is not in its infancy, and it's been around for, quite a long time. But I feel like we're at this point in the industry where I hesitate to say it's like it's kind of like a golden age or something. Like
Hmm.
we're at this point in time where these things are coming out that like I never in my life thought I would
Right.
see, like comprehensive collections for like Andy Milligan or Al Adamson, or, like Arrow just put out a Lucas Moodysson box. It's like all of these things are happening that, and of course the things we're doing, but, without being self-promotional, and
Yep.
seeing all of these companies just like turn over stone after stone after stone and not only just bring the films out, but they're just, doing everything for them. Like the packaging's great. There's like literary components. Every disc is like packed with features. So we're seeing things happen right now that like we haven't really seen happen before.
Yeah.
DVD was so big, and then Blu-ray was pretty big, and now UHD is happening. But there's definitely less people buying discs than there were in like the early 2000s. So I think it's a very interesting time, because while we have a less of a footprint with consumers, the people who are buying things are much more willing to buy things at a higher price point.
Hmm.
So it's almost like we're going, I don't want to say we're going backwards, because we're not, but it almost mirrors to me more like the market for Laserdisc,
Yeah.
where when we had, Laserdisc was existing in tandem with VHS and kind of bridged that gap between VHS and DVD. Laserdisc collectors were people who were like, okay, I'm going to drop $200 on a Laserdisc for, Terminator 2 and like a crazy box. And right now we're kind of seeing things like that happen, where, we're buying these lavish editions for like $100 of, especially for us in the United States, if we're importing some of these crazy packages out of Europe or out of the UK, we're dropping $100 on a movie, or you have some of these box sets are $200, maybe even more. And I think you're starting to see that, there might be less people buying discs on a weekly basis, but those who are, if it's like a few thousand people, they're spending a lot more money. And I think we're starting to see that that's a viable structure, that we can have this thing we're doing and know that there's like a premium market for it. And I think that's really important. I think it's a really important distinction, because if you look at, say the 2000s or 2010s, and, discs are, up here, and then maybe here they're like, somewhere around here. But a lot of those discs up here, you're looking at people buying discs out of the $5 bins at Walmart and Best Buy. It's people rebuying these things that, they had on DVD, or they had on VHS, and they're just getting them, because it's $5, and, they're buying like that $5 release of like Billy Madison to replace their worn out VHS tape and things like that. So right now we're in a very different place, I think, in the industry. And I think it's really good. If the major studios are seeing that and going, hey, we can license, X movie and license it for this much money because they're going to sell it, for this much money, maybe that's good. Maybe that we're at that place now where people are seeing that, there's a different type of consumer being attracted to their titles. But that's all speculation. Like, I don't really know, what goes through the minds of anybody at a major studio. I just know that we're seeing a lot more of these films get licensed, and we're seeing a lot more of them, subsequently get released. And I think it's a really, really exciting time for home video just across the board.
Yeah, I think in talking to people from in brief talks that I've had, a couple people have been on the podcast. I just talked to others. I mean, there's at least the mentality in the home entertainment department's physical side that you have to cater towards the collector. Like, I talked to Todd Sokoloff, who works at Paramount, and like Paramount Presents, that whole line is not by accident. That is because they realized this is how we have to do this. These need to be higher level releases. We can't just put something out. And it's a really good point. I'd love to look at, they put out the sales data, right, every week. I go to Media Play News and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's, of course it's down 20%, 10%, whatever. It changes week by week, like based on what came out. Because it's not a perfect year over year, because the week that Top Gun Maverick came out this year is going to be a really poor week next year if something doesn't match that. Right. So like, yes, they're not matching up, but I even look at it and I go, I would love to look at that, and I would love for them to remove the big six studios out of that and say, what are the sales like? Because of course, like this whole industry was driven by people buying 100 million copies of The Matrix on DVD or The Lion King on VHS. And like, that's not happening anymore, but it still feels super healthy. So yeah, the numbers aren't massive, but it does feel like for those that are specializing in this, that they're doing pretty well. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing all of these releases continue to come out. Like, it's working for the right group of people. It's a niche thing for sure, but it is, like you said, a totally different buyer. Like, people aren't just going to Best Buy and just picking up discs anymore. Like, that's just not, I mean, they don't even have discs anymore in a lot of Best Buys. It's just not how it works. It's a totally different mindset.
I think it's a lot more democratic now too. Like, back in when I had a DVD player, like in the late 90s, or even, going into the early 2000s, if I wanted to buy a movie, I went to Best Buy. I went to Circuit City. I went to Suncoast. I went to these stores, FYE.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's, the vast majority of what I buy, and I'm not even talking about Amazon, although Amazon, has to be a major player in how people are getting stuff. But even without Amazon, I'm buying discs from Diabolic, Orbit. I'm buying directly from labels websites. So I think there's just like this democratized kind of approach to how we get things. And I think that helps a lot. Like, now labels, like a new label starts, like they can have a website and sell direct to consumer. They can piggyback off of, some of these retailers like e-commerce platforms that have, established themselves as like a home for this type of material. Like, if you start a new label right now, you can easily go to a place like, Diabolic or Orbit, Grindhouse Video. Like, there's all these different places that you can go and have sell what you're doing that we didn't really have. And, outside of like mail order catalogs or some smaller channels online in the late 90s, we didn't really have that. So I think right now it's an easier time to start a label, and it's an easier time to like have a label and be able to reach the audience that you want to reach. And you can often do that, on your own, but having help there too, I think is really, really important, and not being tethered to major retailers. Having, if you wanted to get your movie out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and you had to go through like Best Buy or Circuit City or Walmart or something, like that can't have been easy. So I have to imagine that right now it's just like a much healthier, kind of lifespan or life cycle, I guess, for getting a movie out, having it exist in the marketplace. And then, at some point it will go out of print. But I think having something out there, you're not dealing with that whole thing where like you got a movie into Best Buy, you got a movie into Suncoast or something, and then like 2 weeks later it's off the shelf. Until for the next big thing to come out. Now it's, the shelves are online, and you can just kind of keep getting people to come in and pick up copies of it.
Well, and that helps with the profitability side too, to go direct, not having to share your cut with Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Circuit City, who actually, I think Circuit City might have been where I bought most of our DVDs back in the day. Did you? We were in there all the time. My dad was an IT guy. I swear I was in Circuit City every weekend, more than Best Buy or anywhere else. That was where we were at. So I have fond memories of Circuit City.
I did like home theater installs.
Yep. They used to have they used to blow me away when I went as a kid. I was like, what are we doing? We don't have this stuff at home. This stuff's unbelievable. But at the time it was like, God, it was like $10,000 for, the high end stuff. It was crazy. But yeah, it's a good point. The direct to consumer thing, I think, is super powerful. I mean, you see even Universal doing it. I mean, they open up, they kind of, it's weird how they did it, because they kind of hide behind this groove.com website, but like it's Universal and Warner Studio Distribution Services, whatever that group is. It's like they're doing the same thing, because they're seeing the same thing. They're like, there's no need for us to go to Target. Our buyers are online. Our buyers are more specific. We can hit those people online without needing to have everything in stores. And seems like it's been successful for them too. So I think that makes a ton of sense. I never thought about it in that way, just like how hard it would even be to get somebody to buy your movie in 1995, unless you were one of the big six major studios and had a huge marketing, and distribution team behind you. Huh. Yeah, you opened my mind a little bit today. See, I never thought about it in that context, but that's very interesting. I did want to ask too. You talked a little bit about like as we're talking collectors and like the packaging and everything. You talked about the art direction you're doing, some of that work with Vinegar Syndrome. So what does that entail? I mean, are you getting involved in the design of the packaging? Because I think anybody knows who's bought from any of the labels, that is some of the coolest. The golden era documentary that just came out about GoldenEye with that Nintendo 64. I mean, that's one of the coolest releases
Well, I
that
had nothing to do with that.
I've
I mean,
seen.
that's so yeah, like the partner labels, the majority of the partner labels do their own
They
thing.
do all
So
their own stuff.
yeah, they do their own thing. There's some like, I'll help get some slipcovers made, things like that. But yeah, on the Vinegar Syndrome side, I'll do some art direction. To be clear, I don't have any design experience at all. Like in my body, I have like no artistic skills. But what I do is I approach it from just being a fan of the films
Right.
and saying like, hey, this is kind of what I want this to look like. So Showgirls is one that I worked on, and like I'll work with the artists and say, hey, this is the film we're working on. This is kind of what I'm looking to have this look like. These are the elements I want in this piece, and then let them kind of run with it and do their spin on it. Sometimes with certain films we have restrictions, whether it's you can't use certain actors or actresses, or there's certain types of things you can't put on there, or there might be things that you have to have on there. So it really just depends on the project. Everything is so like just determined by that particular title. But yeah, it's something that I've always really liked. I think like any home video collector, like I've always gravitated towards attractive packaging and just deluxe packaging. And it's something, even as someone right now that's a collector, I still, if there's a version with, that's more expensive that just, comes with something extra, I'm going to buy that version. So I always want to kind of deliver on that. And it's the kind of thing where it's impossible to please everyone. There's the people who want everything to kind of look like it looked like when it came out, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Then there's people who want it to look nothing like that. And then, it's kind of a delicate balancing act of trying to be, true to the spirit of the film and also just offer something really cool and unique. And some people love it, some people don't. And, it's just one of those things where you kind of just, you do the best you can and you hope that you did right by the film and the filmmakers. And I think, for the most part, I think Vinegar Syndrome is known for, attractive packaging, quality packaging. And I think, that we all do a really good job at it.
Yeah, no, it definitely, it shines through and you can see that, oh, okay, there are people working on this, whether it is the artist or somebody doing just, giving the art direction, or no matter who, like they have an appreciation for not only the movie, but the home video version of this in that collector mindset, which is, I think, what sets Vinegar Syndrome and other boutique labels apart from the big time mainstream sort of. It's a lot of their stuff is boring a lot of times, to be honest. It's very boring. It's very generic. And, we'll buy them because we like movies and we want them in a physical format and the best presentation. But I don't get the same feeling going to the store and buying the latest, whatever Disney, Warner, Paramount new release that I get having that Vinegar Syndrome box show up, or the box from Arrow or Shout Factory or Kino. Like there's a different vibe there. And it definitely shines through that you guys are doing that. So I appreciate it. And hopefully you keep it up. I definitely like the artwork. So I don't know what anybody else said. I haven't had one yet that I've been like, oh, that's kind of rough. There's been some really unique stuff. I got the Scary of 61st Avenue the other day, and that was super. Yeah, super. I was like, this is just, unique. Like you just don't get that from anywhere else. So I definitely appreciate it. And that a big shout out to you if that was one you worked on, because that one came out really cool.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it also just completely comes down to the artists we work with. And we really, just like the films we pick and, what people we work with on our supplements, like we just are really careful about, who we work with and who we partner with on things. And we just really, like the artists we work with. We always, hire artists that we think fit with the particular film, that we know are going to do a really good job. And I think, everybody we work with really nails it.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, you also do, you get into some of the special features production. I mean, are you doing like the interviews themselves? Or are you lining up, getting archival stuff, or are you just working on some of the back end? How do you get involved there on that side?
It depends. I have conducted interviews. Most of the time, I'm really just doing more like planning or logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I've been, hiring people to do interviews on certain films, and I'll like write the questions for the interviews. It really just, it's definitely project by project. I do a lot of production with the like Hong Kong releases.
Okay.
So Hong Kong, Mexico, kind of more of the international stuff. The VSP releases like Scary of 61st, Censor, those are ones that I worked heavily on.
Censor is so good.
Yeah, I really like it.
so good. I always recommend that one to people. So yeah. So I mean, what you got? Anything exciting coming up that we can? Anything you wanted to tease? We don't have to drop any names, but anything you wanted to tease at all with partner labels? You mentioned you got a new one coming in May?
Yeah, we have a new label coming in May, and then we should have a couple more this year. So those will happen when they happen. But in May, there is definitely a new one May 1st. I can't say who it is or what the film is, but I will say that it's a film I've been dying to work on. It's a film that I have wanted to have come out on Blu-ray for a very, very long time. And it's a disc we've been working on for over a year. So I'm extremely excited for May 1st for that film to be announced and for that label to be a part of what we're doing with OCN. It's a company that, I really admire. I have admired for a long time, both in what they've been doing theatrically and with other things that, they've kind of had their hands on. So people will see it when it's announced on May 1st. I think it's a movie that, has a reputation. I think that certain people who see that it's happening are going to be extremely, extremely excited. And other people are going to feed off of that excitement and take a chance on it and be really rewarded. So I'm very excited. That's my, I guess, big tease, but you have to wait for a month.
That's okay.
We do have 16 new releases this Saturday, April 1st. I don't know when people are going to be listening to this, but yeah.
Probably Friday, probably the day before. So this is a good time to tease.
Yeah, so April 1st, it's not an April Fool's Day joke, but we will have 16 partner label releases, which is
nice.
Quite a few. It's quite a few. So
it's crazy to even think about that. That's even, that's golden era stuff. Like, hey, April 1st, if you said, hey, we have 4 new partner label release, I'd be like, this is great. We're getting so much. You have 16. It's insane.
And that's with that, and then there's the Vinegar Syndrome stuff on top of that. So it's going to be, April 1st is going to be a huge release day for us. There's some really, really incredible titles on the partner side this month. I can't say what anything is, but
no, don't spoil it.
It's 16 releases. So, we have 24 labels. So, there's the vast majority of the labels are represented this month. So there's really going to be like something for every person. Any collectors that find something they want.
Awesome. And that'll all it'll be available on the Vinegar Syndrome site. And
Yep. So just
perfect.
Normal, noon, 12:01 p.m. on April Fool's Day. It's a Saturday. So people shouldn't be at work or anything. Hopefully they aren't.
And no jokes. You promise no jokes. This is all real stuff that's coming on April 1st.
100% real. There's 16 releases. They're great. I think, people are going to be really excited. There'll be stuff that sells out pretty quickly. So I always recommend people, get on the site more sooner than later. As people have probably seen recently, there's going to always be quite a few of the partner releases will have only 1,000 slipcovers.
Yep.
So if there's anything you want that has that, 1,000 number on it, highly recommend, doing that more sooner than later, because we have been seeing some sell out, same day or the next day.
Yeah, the GoldenEye one sold out, I think, if I remember correctly. I I had people asking. I tweeted it out or put it in one of my videos, and people are like, "Oh, I need that." And I'm like, "You're already too late.
Yeah.
These things go. There's a passionate group of people out there, especially for GoldenEye. Forget it. I mean, there's a whole generation of passionate fans of that. So,
I
it
just want to see
is
people
crazy.
get
They
it.
go fast.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think that speaks to the collector market. Is that,
Oh yeah,
people really want this stuff. And then of course, if you want it after, you can always go to eBay, but who wants to do that when you could just go, if you really want something, just go on there and get it, more sooner than later, and then you don't have to resort to the flippers.
It's a good tip. People ask me like, oh, sometimes, there's labels like Criterion where it's like people don't buy until there's a sale, right? Everyone buys at the 50% off sale. It's like they should probably just sell their stuff 50% off all year round. They'd sell more. But it's like for this stuff, I tell people, they're like, well, like, they're going to have a sale. And I'm like, the stuff you want, if you're lucky that it's still available during the sale, is going to be gone in 5 minutes. And more often than not, you're not going to be able to get that slipcover. You'll still have the standard, the standard editions, but like you want that limited edition stuff. There's no waiting around for a sale with some of these labels, and Vinegar Syndrome and the partner labels. That's one example. Like, go get what you want and go buy it. It's going to be gone. It goes super fast in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think people are understanding that, based on, the kind of traffic we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of interest in the last couple of years. I feel like the interest in this specific market, the boutique market, and it's the more obscure stuff that comes out. It's almost like people get more excited about it. A lot of it, people probably blind buying too, but if you put together, it's the home video thing. You go in and you rent the VHS tape that has the crazy cover, and like the movie might not be the greatest movie in the world, but you're just like, I don't care. I need that one. That one's super cool, and usually appreciated for that. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing. Huge fan. I just ordered all the stuff that Vinegar Syndrome put out for the halfway to Black Friday. So that's all on the way. And I will say, I wanted to plug like the rewards program that you guys just introduced to on the Vinegar Syndrome side. Now, I haven't tried to do this yet. Can you apply that to partner label purchases as well?
It works for anything on the VS website.
Okay, cool. Because this has been, for me, awesome. Like, you get points now for everything you buy, but also, you can refer people. So with my audience, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna refer some people and get more people to Vinegar Syndrome. I might get a little, take advantage of it myself there. But that's a great new program, which again speaks to that collector mindset and getting people, back and giving them a reason to buy from you guys direct too. I thought that was super cool. So I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, we also just really wanted to, come up with some really fun, kind of merch items, things that or like unique rewards. I think there's always, there's a lot of people who do rewards programs, and it's like, you build up so many rewards, you get a discount or something like that. But to me, it's, as somebody who's been in an archive and as a company that specializes in physical products, it's always been kind of fun to make weird physical items that people might not expect to get from a home video company. So there's, a lot of the rewards are pretty wide ranging, which was something I was really happy that we kind of went with, which, if you've looked at, we have some of the like different slipcovers you can get. And there's, like,
I love the big display stand.
Yeah, right. The display stand.
It's so cool.
I think it's fun, and people seem to be responding really well to it.
Yeah, no, you gave me even more reason to come and buy the stuff when that came out. I was like, as if I needed another reason to go spend more money, but you've had me on the site more than ever once that launched. So it's been a super cool program. Definitely recommend you guys all sign up for it and check it out. But yeah, before I let you go, last question, because you are a collector. I'm curious, what's some of the stuff that's come out recently, that's really gotten you excited, some recent pickups, things that maybe people don't know about that aren't as mainstream that you'd like to talk about? And it can certainly be, from the partner labels or from Vinegar Syndrome, but, you're a collector of everything, as you said. So I'm just curious what's been coming in lately to your collection.
Well, I'm probably not going to highlight Vinegar Syndrome because I always feel a little weird about that, unless it's like we're hyping up a sale or something. Recently, I mean, a couple days ago, I got in the second sight release of Martin, which has
Oh
been
yeah,
something I've been, just dying for to come out. I like still can't believe it's real. It's
I'm
the kind
waiting
of
on mine. Still not here yet.
it's just like you wait so long for some of this stuff, and then when it's in your hands, you just like you're in disbelief that it's real and that it like is what it is, and that it's
Yeah,
this brick that's devoted to this movie that you never thought was gonna kind of get a release like that. I took part like a lot of people did in the Criterion flash sale, so I was really excited about the Mildred Pierce 4K.
hmm
I really love how 4K and HDR treats black and white films. I think that
yeah.
it's kind of like an unmined thing right now. I'm really excited that Kino also announced Night of the Hunter, so I'm happy that more people are taking a chance on doing.
That's such a good movie.
It's just I think the 4K for color it of course looks great, and I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of discussion around like what HDR does for color, and it does it, but I think the conversation should also be what HDR does for black and white. So I'm very excited by black and white movies coming out in 4K. What else have I bought recently that was exciting? I mean, this year has been like crazy with box sets. So
it has
there's
been.
the Magic, Myth, and Mutilation box from Indicator is
Mm.
just massive. Did you pick that up?
I have not yet. It's on my short list.
Yeah, that's a really incredible set. I was talking before about like Severin had done those Andy Milligan and Al Adamson sets, and a set for Michael J. Murphy's films it's like getting a Blu-ray of a Michael J. Murphy film already seemed, like the kind of thing that just wouldn't happen. But then to get a set of pretty much everything,
Oh yeah,
it's the
their
type of
their
thing
box
that,
sets are. I have their the folk horror one was one that I really really enjoyed.
yeah,
I'm a big fan of the folk horror, so I grabbed that from them. But yeah, it is crazy the stuff we're getting.
yeah, it's just unreal to like see
It
some of
really
these
is.
things come out.
Did you grab the Lighthouse, the A24
I did not.
4K? Because that's one I just got that in. You were talking black and white, so that's what had me. I'm curious. I haven't popped it in yet, but I'm very curious to see how that upgrades. It's newer, so I don't know if I'll be as excited, but still black and white. And you're right, HDR has huge benefits for that stuff. I don't think people sleep on how good black and white movies look
Yeah.
when they get brought to with an HDR grade.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we're just at that point right now where it's like, the things that we never thought would get like home video releases at all are coming out, and they're just these releases that kind of go above and beyond.
yeah,
Trying to think of, one that I was really excited about this year was Arbalos, who's a company I've liked for a long time. They just put out a set of Nina Menkes's films called Cinematic Sorceress. So that's like it's a really great set, and it's a bunch of movies, and the price on it's really low. So I think that's one where, if people haven't heard of her films, I think that's one that's really worth taking a look at. And like, I think I brought up the Lucas Moodysson set from
yep,
Arrow before. That's, I think, like an indispensable package. Like that's something I've been really excited about. And, we talked about the major studios, and you brought up Paramount Presents before, and I've
yeah.
really liked what Paramount Presents have been doing. But one that was like a total curveball that I never thought was going to get a good release at all, let alone from kind of a major studio imprint, was they put out a Blu-ray finally of Just Another Girl in the IRT,
hmm
which is like a really small, it's like an independent film. It was through Miramax back
Yeah.
in the 90s, and they put that out on a Blu-ray, and I just never saw that coming. And I think that's a really great disc that people should pick up.
Yeah, no, they really have been. I just got the Red Eye
Oh yeah,
4K,
me
which
too.
also I was very excited about. Another movie that like I would have just been happy with like a nice release, but they found like new, and Justin Beam did the special feature, so I've talked to on the podcast, and they found like new Wes Craven interviews that hadn't been seen before, a new 4K. I was just like, this is not a movie you'd ever
Yeah,
expect to get a nice 4K package for, but like I'm so happy that it exists. So had to have that one. Yeah, there are so many people doing so much. So, you have to I always tell people, be smart, budget, be smart, you can't buy everything. So really, buy what you love.
It's really
it's so hard because
really
there is so much.
I know, it's like an embarrassment of riches. Like
it is.
And now I know the newest Mondo Macabro batch is shipping now, and I'm like,
really?
dying to see the Dr. Caligari 4K. Like I just can't wait. And I just got a notification that my copy of Drowning by Numbers from Severin. Speaking of titles I never ever thought would get a 4K release, the Peter Greenaway movie, Drowning by Numbers, that just arrived today. So I'm really excited to check that out.
So Caligari, the original's getting a 4K from?
Well, that did get a 4K, I believe, from Eureka, but Dr. Caligari, the 80s movie, got a 4K from Mondo Macabro. But I'm pretty sure Cabinet of Dr. Caligari got a 4K.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I have one that's importing right now that I'm waiting for. Like, I'm like, when is it going to get here? Some of this stuff takes forever when you import it, as you know. So I was like, oh, I thought I missed something, and that there was one that was going to be easier to get. No, but that's cool too. That the 80s version, that's awesome. There's just so much. I mean, how do you? I don't know. We all need to make more money so that we can buy more discs. That's what it comes down to. Like,
I'm in the industry and I can't keep up. Like I end up like forgetting that things came out. Like it'll be, a sale will come around. I'm like, wait, that already came out? Like it's just so much. It's like every week there's just like a flood of new releases.
Yeah, that's why I started adding a new podcast episode every Tuesday where I'm trying to highlight like just stuff that came out. It's as much for people who are watching and listening as it is for me to just make sure that I'm not missing anything. Like it's just so much. It is an embarrassment of riches, but it's a good time to be in this world. I mean, as everyone tells us, it's shrinking, dying. They don't see this side of it, when, Forbes writes an article or whoever, and they're like, it's dead. And they don't see this side of it where it really is thriving. And there's just so many passionate people involved. So yeah, I appreciate you, taking the time and talking about this. I, again, learned a lot every time I talk to somebody in the world. In this industry, I learn more and hopefully get better at what I do and more knowledgeable. So I appreciate you taking the time and spreading the word, and those partner labels. Good luck with all of it. They've been doing some incredible work. So keep it up. Excited to see what these new titles are on the 1st and what this new secret label is in May. You teased that very well. You've got me interested. So I hope everyone listening is interested, but sounds like a lot of great stuff. So where can people stay up to date with everything that's going on?
For Vinegar Syndrome, I just follow all of the Vinegar Syndrome channels. We have OCN Distribution on Twitter and Instagram as well. And then if you want to follow me, I'm very easy to find. I'm on pretty much every social media platform. I'm extremely active on Letterboxd. We're all very easy to find. Cool.
Hey, that is a good thing. Accessibility is what we need more of. Can't make this stuff too hard to find. It's hard to find as it is. So yeah, everyone go check that stuff out. Should be a big next few months. And I'm super excited. So thank you. All right, everyone. So that's our interview with Justin. He was great. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm 2 for 2 with the guys from Vinegar Syndrome and their sister companies, right? I mean, Oscar was great, who we had on a couple weeks back. Now, Justin, really just super knowledgeable, passionate guys who understand the importance of physical media for preservation purposes and entertainment purposes. And they're collectors. They just love this stuff. And you can tell it shines through in all the work that Vinegar Syndrome is doing. And that's why I love the Vinegar Syndrome business model. I love what they're doing with their site. Their rewards program is great. I actually am a lucky new rewards redemption owner of one of their skateboard decks, which I'm going to be displaying in my collection, which is super cool. But everything they're doing just caters to the collector, and Justin is a collector, and you can just tell like they get it. So hope you guys enjoyed this. As we mentioned, mention, you can check out Justin. He's on Twitter and on Instagram. All those links will be in the description. And of course, just go to vinegarsyndrome.com where you can purchase all of the different Vinegar Syndrome releases. You can also purchase from their partner labels, and you can use my code in the description, or I should say my link in the description, to get $5 off your first order if you want to try them out. So sign up for the rewards program, get a $5 coupon courtesy of me. That helps support me as well, which I appreciate. I really just get more rewards points. I don't get any money or anything for it, but you know what? I use those rewards points for sure. I love Vinegar Syndrome, so I appreciate that support, but go support them. Go check out their releases. They've had some incredible stuff recently, and the partner labels and Vinegar Syndrome all together, like the crazy amount of releases they're putting out. It's just super, super impressive, the rate that they can get this stuff out the door. So go support them. All those links will be in the description. But if you want to make sure you're up to date on all the latest from Films at Home, make sure you're following on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if you want the video version of all of these podcasts. I appreciate the support there. And you can also find me on social media. All those links are down below as well. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and stay healthy out there. And I will talk to you all soon.
Coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to the Films at Home podcast using your favorite app so you don't miss another episode. And while you're there, don't forget to rate and review this podcast, which helps us out tremendously. You can also help support us by watching our short-form content over on YouTube and TikTok by searching Films at Home. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at films_at_home. The intro and outro were created by Elin Osborne. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.